Hello everybody and welcome to my new Sunday market breakdown. As usually, we start on the DXY at the daily chart. So what can we see? The price is shifting from momentum from a bearish market with a high, a low, higher low, lower low. So made here are bearish W and it broke here. It was here struggling at this point between these highs and these lows here. We were in some kind of range and we broke out of it with an impulse. So I must say, for a market to break like this, it's really difficult to change from momentum. So what it wants to do is, after a break, we want to see a retest. So this was our previous high. We want to see here a retest of it. Then the market can potentially and go in that bullish momentum again or tap that new liquidity from that shoulder one here, head potential shoulder two with that bullish M taking some new action from this wicks. So for potentially this wicks here from this smaller, higher, low wick, new action, and then we can take that liquidity for more upside momentum. These are the possibilities I can see that we can tap this as support, the break and retest, or we can go further to make that pattern within a pattern. So that's what I can see. So why is the price giving me that intention that it wants to go to the downside? Because it's holding here for around 4 days. 4 days it's holding here with a bearish candle. So this is for me the confirmation that the bears are kicking in. The banks and institutes like to take or took here their shorts to make that break and retest here. And why is that? Because we made here, I guess, a fib completion. Yes, it was here a fib completion aligning. So the banks and institutes like to take the fib completion here to take some profits out. So if I take the round number to the downside, this would be my daily fib completion. And also we had here a clear supply and demand, so acting as support here, resistance, support, resistance. So if I go over it, support, resistance, support, potential resistance, which is holding here. And you can also see here a small pattern forming. You can see here shoulder one, head, shoulder two with support in the head, which is nice. We can go to the downside. So this is the intention that the market is giving me. So if I go now to the weekly chart, I will go to the weekly chart. And what can we see? On the weekly chart, I have a 2 out of 4. What is the market telling me at this point? We had an impulse, we had here more corrective nature, counter to the trend, with the pattern that is formed, shoulder one, head, shoulder two, reversal pattern, we kicked in with bullish momentum. So what is the only thing that can stop the price? It's this bearish W here, the smaller bearish W here that can push the price again to the downside to take here that new liquidity or to stop here at these daily zones to go back up. So what are the retail traders doing here and the banks and institutes? Because the banks and institutes like to come back till daily ICs or weekly ICs. We tapped here at weekly buying zone. We wanted to go after this bullish candle close to tap this IC, which we do. And now the banks and institutes have enough liquidity to potentially go back to the downside to make that relief. Because you can see on that line chart here, also here a small bullish M here. You have here some kind of small structure here sitting, aligning with the daily zone that can hold the price up for potentially breaking out of that, for making that bigger shoulder one, head, shoulder two here, inverted and shoulders. That is potentially happening. So we'll see what will happen. And you can also see the fib from this high till this low. The 78.60 is holding really well. So for me, it's indicating that we can have a push, small push to the downside. So I have a 2 out of 4. The trend is for me bullish from this low till this high. It's a bullish impulse with a correction after it. Then the candle close for me is also bullish. This is an impulsive candle close for me. And the fib level is not really working for us or against us because this fib from this high till this low is working against you for that long. So and this fib from this low till this high is working for you. So for me, it's in between, not really working for you or against you. And then the supply and demand. So in this one here at this IC can work against you, aligning with that fib. So 2 out of 4 to go to that long. And the daily was then clear. We want to see a pullback. The sellers are kicking in. It's giving me the intention that we want to go to the downside. And on the 4 hour, we can already see that this was a shoulder one, had potential shoulder two here, it was here, having the sellers kicking in a little bit higher, and then we go to the downside because you made here your low, high, and we made here a break of that, so we are potentially bearish, and the market can complete that fib from this high to this low, that minus 27 fib completion here, which is moving towards it right now. So really nice to see. So then the first trade I'm looking at is AUD CHF. So if I go over the daily, what can we see on the daily? We can see we have a potential inverted and shoulders. So if you look at the bigger picture, if you look at this whole zone here, you can see you had a potential shoulder one, had shoulder two here, which was holding for a lot of days. You can see a lot of wicks here struggling to break that zone, which we did because we had still this IC here, this zone that was working against you, which you could see we were sitting stuck between his lows and his highs here. So, and then we went to the downside. So, which pattern we had also was here, that bullish M, that impulse. This was an impulse. This was a whole correction. So after a correction, we can see again an impulse till this beginning of correction. So yeah, so the shoulder one, head shoulder two wasn't playing out, so we wanted to have a new liquidity zone, which was this higher low here from that bullish M daily zone. You can see we took the liquidity here, aligning with the weekly buying zone and weekly fib completion, and you can see that the buyers are kicking in. New liquidity got in, banks and institutes took their buy positions, and we went impulsively to the upside. So if I look to the smaller picture, we had here that bearish W, we broke out of it. After that impulse and break, we want to see a break and retest. So we want to see a retest of that zone. And you can see the shoulder one, head, shoulder two can potentially form impulse, correction, then potentially again impulse to the daily minus 27. This is what I can see. The only thing that we see is that the shoulder one region, the 61.80, isn't tapping it. But we can see at this zone that there are a lot of wicks coming a lot of times to the downside, tapping a little bit lower, taking some new liquidity. And you can see here are sellers sitting at this zone. So for me, if you tap the 61.80, it's valid to take some trades. This is the only thing that is not for you. That FIP level is not at the shoulder one. So then if I go to the weekly, if I look at the market psychology behind this trade, you can see that we had here a double bottom and you had here a false break. So for me, this was obvious why we could go to the upside because you had here a break. The retail traders think we go to the downside because they look only at the 4 hour chart, 1 hour chart, short momentum charts. And the banks and institutes see this, okay, we tapped this weekly buying zone lows. We had a small break of that. So the retail traders go short, we can go long, bam, we had that impulse. After an impulse, what can we receive? A potential correction. So we have here a waveform. Within that waveform, we have that fib completion from this high till this low, minus 68 your round number to the upside, aligning really well. And then you had your weekly bullish candle, impulsive candle close. Really well to see that. And you can see your horizontal line of this false break, these buyers here sitting. Nice support week here also. You can see the buyers are kicking in from that zone. And yeah, that fib completion aligning there got this candle to the upside. This is telling me that the banks and institutes like to push the price more to the upside. So that's very nice to see. So we have a 2 out of 4. Actually, you can say 3 out of 4 also because the supply and demand at this lows was triggered. So actually, you can say 3 out of 4. For some people, it will be 2 out of 4. It's not a problem. So the trend is bearish because you had here your high and your low. So this is the major impulse to the downside. We can now make that range. We are sitting stuck between these lows and potential highs because you made here the same lows. We can expect the same highs, and after this impulse and correction, we can receive that beginning of correction. So we want to see that impulse till these highs here also, where the sellers can kick in from. So if that is clear, the candle close is for you because it was really impulsive bullish candle close from that weekly fib completion. The fib can work for you. Fib completion here from this high till this low. And you can also say this fib from this low till this high here can work for you and is now closing above again the 61.80 and was holding in 78.60 here. So that was really nice to see. So like that, I will delete this. So we have 2 out of 4. And then the supply and demand zone here at this weekly buying zone here can hold the price up. So it's 3 out of 4 to go to the long. And if I go back to the daily, we wanted to see the inverse playing out, shoulder 1, head, shoulder 2, like this, playing out. I will delete these drawings also. Then we can go to the 4-hour chart. And on the 4-hour chart, what can we see? We could see this as a more corrective nature, and here it's way more impulsive. So the only thing we want to see now is this break of this previous higher low. That's the only thing we need to be careful for because we are in a bullish trend. So you want to see here a break of that, potentially doing here a fib completion from that 4-hour head and shoulders, and then seeing if we have a pattern or not. So this is a trade I'm looking at. Then Euro AUD, a bullish M trade. So we have here an impulse, correction. This is our first leg, second leg, third leg, impulse, potential fourth leg, corrective nature. You can see already this is a little bit going slower to the downside. So if we are going slower to the downside to tap this IC because the banks and institutes like to come back to the daily institutional candle. So this is what I want to see, bullish M potentially. And till if I go over this one, why we went to the downside here is because if I went back to the higher time frames, you can see this is also a selling zone, also on the daily support, support, resistance, support, support, resistance. You can see the sellers are kicking in from that point. So the intention from the bigger sellers or the bigger institutions is we had here also some sellers in the previous history. We we are taking here profits, so we want to go and make this bullish M where we can have here at this IC some new liquidity sitting at or at these lows. It depends where we have a pattern, and then we can go back to the upside. Because if we go to the weekly, if we go over the market psychology, if you have an impulse, because are still bullish on the weekly, we have this low, high, low, high. We have this bigger bullish M working for you. We have here that impulsive move. After an impulse, the sprinter needed to have some relief. So this is your relief correction. Counter to the trend for a potential move to the upside again. And you can see also we have a smaller inverted in the shoulders potentially. You have here our shoulder 1, head, resistance in the head, potential shoulder 2 here. We had that impulse potential correction, which is aligning with this daily zone here. And I have my supply and demand zone at this IC of that shoulder 1. You can also see this was here clear acting as resistance, false break, support, nice wick, boom to the upside, wick, upside momentum. We went below, we acted as resistance, resistance, small support wick, potential support wick again. So for me, it's a nice region where the buyers can kick in from, aligning with this IC here, this daily zone. So it's good to take here a trade. And we have a 2 out of 4 on the weekly. We have a trend with us. So this is our trend from the low till the high. This is bullish correction. Then we have another impulse here, potential correction here from that smaller inversion and shoulder on that weekly. And the candle close is not really, yeah, for me it's against you because we tap this weekly selling zone here and you can see it's rejecting on that. So for me, it's actually against you and it closed, yeah, impulsively to the downside from here. So it's in the middle. So for me, it's bearish. So this is bearish. The fib from this low till this high can work for you. But if you look at the smaller fib from this low till this high, it's aligning with the daily zone. So actually, if we come to the daily IC low, this fib is working for you. So I counted this fib for me, and then the supply and demand zone here, this selling zone is working against you. And if we tap this IC here from that shoulder one, we can see then the supply and demand zone is working again for us. So this is the trade 2 out of 4 we can take here the trade on. So the daily was clear. We have a bullish M. We want to see the price coming back till that IC. And on the 4 hour, what can we see? On the 4 hour, we are potentially bearish here because if I take a horizontal line here, we broke this zone here. And we have here a bearish W that can play for you to go to the downside. So for me, I expected impulse to the downside with that fib aligning here, smaller fib from that 4 hour bearish W. You can see it here. It's rejecting on that, and also here that break, and then that break, and then that retest here from that zone, and then the bearish candle. So we can go to the downside for me. So then this was a trade, then Chfjpy. This is another trade I'm looking at, the last one. What can we see? We are in a bullish market structure. What is the intention of the banks and institutes? Because we have here our first leg, second leg, third leg, potential fourth leg, which was coming back here. And after that, we receive here the same highs, potentially the same lows, or we can come back to this new liquidity zone from that lows, from that previous higher low. So if I take here my horizontal line, you can see the horizontal line here at these daily previous highs. You can see we had a small candle close breaking above that. So this is telling the retail traders, okay, we can go long now, but the banks and institutes say or see, okay, we have enough bulls kicking in. We can go now for the short to have enough liquidity to take these retail traders out with their stops. Maybe their stops were here, stop losses, and then they made that false break. So I expect the price to take new liquidity from these daily lows or this previous daily lows, this bigger liquidity zone. And we can see we make here a waveform, first, second, third, A, B, C correction lining with the daily fib completion. As I can take my fib from this high to this low, you have a minus 27 fib completion here aligning, so this can be a perfect trade to take. And you can see also the impulses clearly, impulse, correction, impulse. This can be your whole correction here, or just like this. Or this can be an impulse and a small correction here also, till these daily lows for that natural M. So if I go to the weekly now, what can we see on the weekly? I have a 2 out of 4. For some people, it will be maybe a 1 out of 4. But for me, the trend is bullish still because as you can see, we had here our bullish M. So we had a low, high, low, high, and we made a new low. So then the market was changed from bullish till bearish. So this was the new leg impulse bearish move. But then it's really hard for a market to potentially immediately move from a bullish market to a bearish market. So it at least wants to make a previous structure tap, which it did here. This was our previous support. resistance, but it didn't hold. We went above that. So then the bulls are kicking in, potentially till at shoulder one, head shoulder two. It didn't work. So for me, it's telling me, okay, the bulls are still present and they want to push the price up. Also, if I go to the monthly, you can see that still this monthly M holding the price up, which was the major factor of this impulse again to the upside. This IC aligning here, we tap these lows, banks and institutes saw this IC low sitting here. Yeah, they went all the way, bullish momentum went in to the upside. So this is the market psychology behind it. And on the weekly, yeah, you can see the impulse started in kicking. And then if I put my horizontal line at these previous highs here, you can see we made a small break. Maybe the retail traders think we go for the long. They did. They went to the long. But then the banks and institutes like to say, okay, if we short here, they shorted here till this previous resistance that can become support, and then they took their profits and they went back to the upside. So this is telling me, okay, we have here a clear supply and demand zone acting as resistance support. So this is our supply and demand zone working for us, and the trend is still bullish for me because the monthly was bullish with that impulse again to the upside and making here a new high from that previous high week here. We made here a new high. It's closing a little bit above that. So for me, it's 2 out of 4. So the weekly was clear, daily was clear. 4 hour, we can see impulse, correction, impulse, correction, impulse, correction. So we can see that we are working with impulses and corrections, and we are going now in a correction. So for me, we can go to this daily zone. And yeah, we can make here a pattern decel, inverted and shoulders, a bullish M, something like that. And we can also see the thing that is aligning here is this bullish M aligning here with that correction. And you can see we can go to the downside to tap here some new liquidity, aligning with this higher low wick here, that we can take maybe a new action to go to the upside. So these are the trades I am for a moment looking at. I hope you liked my SMB and see you next week. Bye.